Doug, I have a vegan problem to ask.
Oh,
your
a
opinion
vegan
on.
problem.
Yep,
I like it.
Only vegans deal with, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
I have in the past complained about bug issues and how I have sought out and found vegan solutions for dealing with bug infestations.
Yes.
And my big innovation in that department was the vacuum cleaner. You suck them up, and then you can somehow they come out unharmed, and you release this whole swarm of bees and whatever out in the outside of the house. Which it because we have like a soccer room that we don't get swarms of bees in our house, but we have this sort of patio room that you I think busted the screen out of, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I was having an epic soccer battle with your son,
right.
and
Well,
hard.
that I don't know if it was that exact instance, but the screens bust out all the time. And when we don't fix it promptly, especially in the summertime, it fills up with bugs, fills up with bees, and then the kids won't use the room, which I think I've mentioned on this podcast before. But anyway, but so what I figured out was you can vacuum them up and then release them, and they don't get hurt. So most of them don't. So now though we have a rodent problem, and it's getting worse. It's mice, which is better than rats, I guess. And we live out in the country, so it's not like they're not as gross to me as like I think if I lived in the city, mice and rats would be. Because I can imagine them sort of being just like any other animal out there. It seems pretty clean. But anyway, they are defecating around the house and all different rooms. They're every night there's just new droppings left. Yep. And we don't know what to do, so we got the no-kill traps that are just these little contraptions that basically like mouse trap. They came where it's just a little contraption that ends up trapping the mouse. Yeah. Right. And then we put them out the next day, and I think they just run a little circle and run back in the house after we put them out because they're just right back in. And sometimes I think in the kitchen area where the trap is, they've stopped leaving droppings there, but they still end up in the thing, and the droppings are only around the trap. So I think they're now only coming in to get the peanut butter in the trap. They're no longer interested in anything else but what's in the trap.
Oh, so they are actually eating the peanut butter.
Yeah, they eat the peanut butter and then they stay in there overnight, get a nice warm place to sleep, and then.
Oh wait, they're getting trapped, and then you're releasing them, and they're coming back.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We put them out, and I think they just take a little lap and then come back in wherever they get in. And I think they come in so often, and it's almost every night, that I think they're coming in for the nice warm spot in the trap and the peanut butter, because they're not in the kitchen anyway. They're not wandering around anymore. They just go right to that. So,
well, where are you releasing them?
Out in front of the house. I guess.
That's your problem.
I guess we can drive them further away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's your first mistake in mouse trapping.
Well, but I think so obviously we don't want to kill them, right? Killing them just feels, I don't know. Yeah, ethical discussions aside, it just feels, I don't know. I just don't want to kill things.
Sure.
But taking them away from their own home, like, so they can't get back. What if they have babies and stuff there? Isn't that worse?
Well, I don't know. Maybe now you're gonna make me look bad. But what we always do is, I'll walk like down a whole block to like a stop sign. There's a little field at the end of our street, and drop them there. Okay. And it's hard to say if the same ones ever come back. Like we have had really every winter we've had a small mouse problem when it gets cold, and because I think that they're coming in through our fireplace that's not properly sealed up. Anyway, but I take them and they're good for maybe even all year, but definitely weeks. So I don't think it's the same ones that are making their way back. Okay. So that's what you got to do. Just take them down. Take them down.
Though.
What's that?
You're ruining the mouse family. You're taking him away from his home.
It's possible.
I guess that's not a bad solution.
What were you gonna do? What do you do?
Well, I thought maybe I needed a deterrent of some kind, and I think it might be getting a cat, because right. My daughter is dying for another pet. She wants a hamster, but I can't. This is funny. I've never really thought, I went vegan for animal reasons. That was my primary motivator. But I'd never really have, at least back then when I made that decision to be vegan, I didn't care that much about having a hamster. That wouldn't have struck me as a wrong thing. But now all I can think about is that hamster being up in her room for 23 and a half hours a day, in a little cage. And it just doesn't, I don't know, just would all the time, it would just kind of wear on me that I wouldn't like that. So it would be a rescue, of course. And so I guess in that way it's a little bit better, but I just can't, I don't think I can do it. Somehow a rescued cat that is in our house, can go outside. That feels much better. And it's still sort of we could still travel fairly easily with a cat if you do things right, I think. Mm-hmm. With the apps that are out these days. There are apps that you can fling treats to your pets, watch them on videos.
Really?
Yeah. My friend
there's a little machine that just discharges a treat?
Yeah. It actually flings it, and you can watch the dog or cat catch it or whatever, and it's right hooked up to the webcam. But anyway, you can go away. So I was talking to someone yesterday who they said they left their cat for a month, and they just had a webcam. They watched, everything was fine. The food, made sure the food came out every day.
Where did it poop?
Well, I'm guessing they had someone come clean out the litter box every day.
Yeah, okay.
I'm guessing every week or something. Anyway, so cat seems like a reasonable thing, and I was thinking that the cats would just kill the mice, and I'm like, well, I don't know if that's better or not, because it's nature doing it, I guess, instead of us. But I think they actually deter them. I think maybe they do kill one or two, but then the mice stop coming.
I think that's right. I think getting a cat is a much better solution than dealing with mice every year. I love that idea.
Right, I do too.
That's also the most vegan solution ever. Is how do we not kill an animal if we get another animal?
Right.
Rescue
kind of imprison another animal, but at least it would be a rescue, so it wouldn't be helping him. And I just wondered other deterrents. Maybe there are other things that will just make the mice, if I put the smell of, I don't know, eucalyptus around my house, would they stay away from that or something?
I don't know. Good question. I mean, the best deterrent is to figure out how they're getting in and seal that up.
That's true. That would be good.
Mm-hmm. What if you put the traps next to the door or something, and they just got a little comfortable, cozy, but then didn't go all over the house?
To go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Uh-huh.
But I don't want to have to empty the mice out every day.
No.
That's also not that nice of a thing.
As someone who has had mice and rats in their house, rats in DC, rats are significantly worse than mice. Mice are no big deal to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want them. I actively try to get rid of them, but
I really don't mind the mice running around the house. I don't like cleaning up their poop around the house. That's gross to me. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we should probably move on.
That was a good story. Well, keep us updated on what you do with the cat.
Yes, I will do that. I'm allergic to cats, by the way. That's also a major hang-up with that problem, with that solution. But there are some hypoallergenic cats you can get, mostly. So anyway, I will keep you posted. All right, Doug, we're doing our New Year's episode, which we pretty much do every year, I think, just because I like New Year's. It's one of the holidays that I get very excited about, along with Black Friday. So we tend not to miss the opportunity to do a New Year's episode. And usually we just kind of talk about what our resolutions are, any sort of maybe new issues or insights or things that have come up around this New Year's. So this year we have no shortage of things to talk about as far as a different type of New Year's. 2020 was 2020, and just made things entirely different. I mean, I don't know who. Actually, I guess I probably had more success at my New Year's resolutions than almost anyone, because all my stuff was kind of personal, want to learn this, want to do this, want to have more time to cook more and do it. And so I was able to do all of those things. Some travel plans got disrupted and many other things got disrupted. But I guess it's a weird year in that anyone who would have had a big race goal or travel goal, or who knows, something that just required interaction with people and traveling, it just didn't happen, couldn't happen. And so that's sort of an interesting thing on its own, is how's that feel, having your big goals be disrupted, especially if you were maybe because certainly there were some people who probably had their best January and February ever and were really, really on track, and then suddenly can't do it anymore, which is no good, right? Having a marathon be canceled or not canceled, but if you get an injury or something that makes it so that all your training was kind of for nothing, that's a big psychological thing to deal with. Mm-hmm. So anyway, all of that just sort of colors the New Year's discussion, and we just wanted to, really just have a New Year's discussion and talk about where our minds are and what we're thinking as far as next year plans. Should we even be making plans? Not travel plans per se, but It's, now that we've seen that, like, totally unknown, unexpected things can happen, is it even worth us trying to plan what we're going to do? Or should we just fly by the seat of our pants every day?
Well, so I'd say that was the biggest lesson for me out of 2020. 2020 was, it was a challenge for everybody. Certainly a challenge for me, and a lot of things that I wish would have looked differently in this conversation. But the how quickly things can change, I think, is the biggest lesson for me that to come out of 2020 is around goal setting anyway. And that, I was having a good January, February. I'd say I really was kind of approaching the year in a different way and feeling pretty positive about that. I was training all right, and just in general, health and fitness was feeling really good. And then everything changed, and that switch, that leaving my routine and leaving the comforts that I had come accustomed to, and just changing how we were sending the Eliza to school and all that stuff. It just totally derailed me, and it derailed me basically all year. I mean, I really, I never rebounded when it came to fitness. I never got back into a lot of the routines that I had at the beginning of the year that I was feeling good about. I'd say it was not a good year at all for me as far as personal development and just kind of growth in general. So I think the big lesson out of that was to I don't know how anyone could have really expected what happened, because it's or anticipated or planned for what happened, because it was just so wild and not uncommon. But I think, planning for the unexpected, or just having ways to regroup when things go astray, I think is a valuable lesson that's come out of this for me.
Yeah, and so even if you didn't have definite ways, you didn't have a backup plan that here's what I'm going to do if things don't go this way, I think you could have a general, I don't know if detachment is the right word or the right concept, because that's not usually used in this way, but kind of an attitude that says, these are my plans, this is what I am really committed to doing, but I'm also not married to the idea that it has to happen, because we've seen that things just might prevent it from happening that aren't,
or that it has to look a certain way. Maybe your goal is to run a marathon, and there's really no other way that running a marathon can look. If your goal is to really cross that finish line,
right.
But if your goal is to go through a training process that is maybe the most intense training process that you've gone through, or if your goal is to reinvent your health or your nutrition, and you had a vision for what that would look like, and now you're having to cook different meals for everybody and yada yada. If you can separate from the result, or the what you pictured at the beginning, and really think about what it is you're trying to actually achieve, the end result that you were trying to achieve, and if there's a way to do that in the new circumstance, in the new situation, I think that could be powerful. But that's hard. That's really hard to do, right? I mean, if you have a vision for running a marathon, and suddenly there's no marathon to run, or it's virtual or whatever. I mean, it's hard to have that intense training block with no big reward.
It is. But I do think there's something to that. I think that is kind of the answer. And actually that was something that came up in my situation as well. Because when I guess there might be some people where a marathon is a bucket list item, and that's it. It's just, that's the only reason they want to run a marathon. It doesn't have to do with the way you grow in the process of training, not just the fitness you gain, but what it means that you were able to put yourself through the training it takes to run a marathon without obviously you can do a marathon without training, and the result is a disaster, but it can be done. But
yep.
but that's what I'm saying. I don't think most people want that. They want to actually have gained all the things you gain in the process of training for a marathon, and then you get this nice little prize that says you did it. But mostly, I think people want the other stuff. And so I think that would be the great secret if we could all master that, which is just being okay with the, understanding that what we're doing it for is not the actual, visible thing that you have a marathon finisher's medal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, like you said, that's very, very hard to do. I arrived at this by wondering about this idea of like it, because I've heard before, I think Tony Robbins says that progress is equal to happiness in many, many ways. Like that, if you look at what makes people happy, it's not are they achieving goals, it's are they making progress to something. So if you're feeling every day like you're making progress towards something that is important to you, then I think you are, and I actually have kind of observed this year, that can make you happy even when there isn't really, I don't know, there's no payoff at the end of it. And so specifically the way this came up for me was with like learning languages. I had started the year saying I would really want to learn Spanish. I would get my Spanish to be really good. And it was already decent, but I wanted to make it really, really good. And I wanted to learn Italian. So I spent the first, I don't know, after quarantine started, I spent probably the first 2 or 3 months of that really, really doing a lot of Spanish. Did the conversations with the person on italki.com, watched a bunch of Spanish Netflix, and like got to a point where I was really, really sharp with my listening and speaking and all that. And then I dove into Italian and like kind of let go of the Spanish, just sort of forgot about it because I was so excited in something new. And I'm realizing now, like when I look back at the end of the year, because I don't know, every year I sort of fantasize about like how great I'm going to be at learning stuff and how disciplined I'm going to be. And like this year, I wasn't that disciplined. It was just that it was really easy to do because there was so much time and there was nothing else going on. So suddenly anything that would have distracted me from that was gone. And I could just do that and a billion other things like it, which I'll mention later. But here's what I was wondering. I spent those first 3 months learning Spanish and I was loving it. And I was watching a bunch of Netflix in Spanish and I was starting to understand it really well. And it just, in the moment, felt amazing. I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like I'm actually observing myself getting better. And then I did the same with Italian, got those same good feelings of learning it, doing it every day, but in the process forgot a lot of the Spanish. Or I should say my Spanish abilities dulled. I didn't forget that many words or anything, but just, if I tried to watch the shows I was watching now, if I tried to watch them now, what I was watching then, I'm sure it wouldn't be good. I wouldn't be able to know what they're saying, and I'm sure I would feel kind of disappointed in like, wow, I can't believe I sort of let that go. So then I was wondering, like, I don't know, I felt so good while I was learning that stuff, and I felt so good while I was learning the Italian. Is it a bad thing that there was no result to the Spanish, right? Like I didn't get to travel to Spain and use that heightened level of Spanish. I just was so happy with the learning of it, but now that some of that has disappeared, like does that mean that time was wasted that I spent learning it, and that I've now lost? And by the way, that's another thing I've realized I need to be better at is like when you move on to a new thing, I need to make sure that I have something in place where there's like a infrequent revisiting of something that I've left behind so that I don't lose it. But the big thing that I was wondering is like, I don't know. I think for me, that was such a perfect example of progress equals happiness, even when there's no goal. Because in this case, a lot of what I spent time learning evaporated. But I got to be very happy while I was learning it. And I got to feel fulfilled and like,
yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I think, I think that's mature. I don't know if that's the right word, but a mature way to set goals. That goes back. That reminds me of an episode we did a while ago on like fully understanding my why around running a 100-miler. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that? Yep. It was kind of mid-run. I was going up this mountain, really struggling, and I just was like thinking to myself, like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I really doing this? Because I've already run this race. I might PR it, but like that doesn't really matter. Right. Like, it's not going to be like a whole 100-mile PR. It's not a new distance. It's not nothing. Like, there's nothing. The result, I'll finish, but the result isn't something that's really exciting. But it was the process of the training, it was the process of the race, it was the process of what that whole 100-mile experience, how it made me feel and how who it made me be and all these things like that was that was the why. Like that was the fulfilling part. And I think that it sounds kind of similar to what you're saying about, about learning the language is, it's the experience of learning the language, and you bonus, you are learning things, and you'll retain that. And next time you do go to Spain, you'll be in a better position than last time. And, there are benefits to learning that, of course, but like the whole process is the real reason why you want to do it.
Right. I think that is what's so important and still so hard to believe or get your head around. This is back to the marathon training, right? It's about the process, but I think and maybe you can get to past the point where you don't need anything but the process, which would be a very enlightened way of being. But
yeah,
but maybe that's possible. But anyway, so super interesting to me. Just this thing isn't Rich Roll's been saying that forever, right? That it's all about the journey or the process or whatever.
Yeah, probably. Sounds like a Rich Roll thing to say for sure.
He beat us to it, Rich.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I think that's that is an enlightened way to approach life in general, probably. But certainly around goal setting, and but that doesn't mean that you can't have concrete goals too, right? I mean, that doesn't mean that language is a hard one to have a concrete goal with, I guess. Right. But like just because you love the process of running a 100-mile, it doesn't mean that you can't then set a goal to have your fastest 100-miler or to do something different. Right. Right.
We said this a very long time ago on this podcast. I think it was 2015. I know that because I was living in a different house after our house was flooded, and I know that was 2015. That idea.
House?
What?
My grandmother's house.
This was right before I moved in there. This was when
okay.
we recorded this one when I was in my friend Bren's house.
Oh.
But anyway, what we said, what it was that I don't remember how to specifically word this valuable lesson, but it had to do with it was saying have really big giant goals that you're using for this reason because they give you a reason to want to do the process. But untangle the achievement of those goals from your happiness. So you have these really important goals. I mean, that are important because they're motivating you to act and learn and train or whatever. Mm-hmm. But realize that your happiness doesn't depend at all on actually getting them. It just depends on doing the steps towards them.
Man, that's some wise advice. That's good.
I know.
Good advice.
I know. I think that was from Vishen Lakhiani from Mind Valley, and I don't know where. I'm sure he got it from somewhere else too.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean that's what it's all about. But it's
okay. So we didn't write that advice. You didn't.
No,
you didn't.
no, that was not my advice.
Okay.
That would have been
I was
really
going to
smart.
say maybe we peaked 5 years ago.
No, but I do think it's very important advice. I wish I knew the name of that episode. I think if you Google No Meat Athlete, like untangle your happiness from your goals, you will probably find the show notes and the link to that episode. Anyway, so to change it just a little bit here, the subject or the subtopic, as we talked about 6 months through and at the beginning of the year, I was doing that game where I was writing down and I was giving myself a little imaginary point every time I did a certain activity that was one of like certain categories that I had said these are things I want to do more of. Cooking a meal, planning a meal, watching a movie with my family or by myself because I just wanted to feel more things. Play games with the family. All kinds of things. Learn, read a book.
More things? What does that mean?
I think I'm such like into like intellectualizing and learning stuff. I just don't really like, I don't know. I like movies because they make me like feel sad or feel scared or feel like, I don't know. I just feel something. I don't feel that much in my life. Which is the problem. And something I've actually realized at the end of this year, because I had some health scares, not in my household family, but with my parents, and some other relatives. And I found it really hard to tap into those feelings. So it actually got me thinking about stuff and has colored a little bit my goals, resolutions thinking for next year. But anyway, I had all this list of things that would get me points, and the points weren't for anything other than I was thinking that I would put a paperclip or something visual into a jar, and I would see these points accumulate so I could view my results stacking up even if there was nothing otherwise to show for it, kind of as we talked about with no marathon medal. And in a way that worked really well. Like it was really effective at getting me to actually do stuff. And I have this list. Now, it also helped that this quarantine happened and that we weren't leaving the house anymore because then I was only doing this stuff. along with work. But like that was all I was doing for many hours a day was these things. And it was cool. I did all these things. I read lots of books. I just did a ton of things that I had never made the time for before. And then I stopped it 6 months in and said I was going to change it, and I was going to focus more on, kind of like interpersonal and like, I don't know, what's the word? Like ways of being, like sort of Ben Franklin's 13 virtues list we talked about, where like you notice yourself being a certain way or not being a certain way, and you make a point or give a mark for that. And I was going to change it for that. And I never really, that just never went anywhere. It led to a bunch of thinking about that, but I never actually started a game or goals with that or anything.
Okay.
But anyway, the whole point of that is just to say that like that whole system was successful, and a lot of those things that I was doing then were the things that I had said I want to do more of this year in 2020 before we knew what 2020 was going to be like. But if you will recall, those were my enrichment habits. I said these are the things that will make me like feel like I'm kind of growing. But I also have all these other habits that I just want to be doing because they're healthy, and I called them the operating system habits. I think they're good for me, even if they're not the most fun thing to do. I was terrible with those this year. I did nothing with that this year. I mean, I let my fitness go. I meditated for 40 days straight in this one program, but other than that, I didn't do a bit of it. I drank more alcohol. I had intended to not drink nearly as much alcohol this year as I did the year before, and I think I drank more alcohol this year than I did the year before.
I think most of us did.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. So I kind of have an excuse on that one. But the point is, the things that aren't fun, I didn't do at all. I was awful at that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's funny to compare that to me. For me, now, I guess the COVID situation, like it added stress, and maybe for me it added more stress than I realized, and it just made it harder to do those things that required willpower to do. But it's interesting for me that I had a year that was like an amazing year as far as not a lot of things obviously external were not amazing, but when I just think of me in my house doing stuff, as far as checking off things that I wanted to do, I mean, I've never had a year like that before, and yet I was also really, really bad, historically bad at these healthy kind of good habits that I don't feel like doing, but I should be doing. And at the end, I just bought a book by this guy named Pavel, Pavel. I don't know why his last name is not included in his books, but it's not.
Okay.
And he's a kettlebell guy. He's a Russian kettlebell trainer, and he has this really simple workout program. And I was reading it yesterday, actually, and I got a kettlebell, and I'm super excited about that for next year. To do this kettlebell workout. That is just 2 exercises. And you do, I think the goal is to get at a certain weight, 100 kettlebell swings with each arm, 50 with each arm in 10 minutes. And these Turkish get-ups, they're called, where you lay on the ground, you stand up with a kettlebell in one hand. 10 of those in 10 minutes, 5 per side. So 1 per minute. And then you do 5 on one side and 5 on the other side, alternating, of course.
Yep.
But that's all you do. And he says, don't look at this like your training sessions aren't trying to get the number of reps in. They are, he said, you treat this like if you're learning a musical instrument. You set aside 20 or 30 minutes to practice that day, to train that day, and you're not being distracted. You're not listening to a podcast. You're not taking bathroom breaks. You're just there to focus and train and do this, which is very, very different from any kind of workout I've done before, where it's like you get these things done, check these boxes, and then no matter how you did it, it's fine. You just do it. This is so much more like basically the process we were talking about with the language learning, and it's this sort of, I don't know, it's the process, right? It's like getting more out of the process than just checking boxes and saying I did my workout today.
Right.
Right. And so what I'm thinking is maybe the secret, maybe this is the big answer, is you have to make those exercise or the operating system, the habits that you don't feel like doing, you have to find a way to make those as meaningful as, your practices that you really care about. Because suddenly, and I don't know if it will last, there's plenty of things I've talked about on this podcast where I'm super excited and then they don't last. That's no secret. But I just wonder, like, is that what it is? Like, and I mean, people have been saying that forever. If you want to eat healthy, you have to make it a lifestyle, not just a diet. But I think that's what I want to really focus on this year. Is like I have some things that I want to do, like fitness, that I know I need to be better at, and just will be happy later if I am better at that this year. But but I think they need to be embraced like a practice, not just done as a matter of, routine.
It makes sense to me. I mean, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I like the idea of. I really like the idea, and I would say that in many ways, this is when I'm at my best with running. It's the same way. Is like instead of trying to achieve a certain amount of miles during that run or a certain pace or something like that, but if I can just go run and enjoy it, for 20, 30 minutes or whatever, or longer, but if you're doing that same thing with kettlebells, just, it doesn't matter how many reps I'm doing. It doesn't matter like what the result of that particular workout is, but I'm doing it and I'm getting better at it and getting stronger at it. Right. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And, part of when it comes to the operational stuff, when it comes to fitness, when it comes to nutrition and meditation and all that thing is as soon as you're not achieving the result that you want, it's easy to let that slide. So if you're really eliminating the result, and it's more about just doing it, then there's less pressure to, make sure that you're hitting your splits. There's less pressure to make sure that you're meditating or that you're clearing your head completely during your 5 minutes of meditation.
Right.
And that's just a much more comfortable way to like do it. And you're probably gonna, because you're taking off that pressure, it's probably gonna have better results.
Yeah. It's also boring though. That's the thing. Like,
yeah.
If you don't have, and maybe as you get older, by the way, I'm turning 40 in a week.
Yay.
And that has also like made a big impact on just the way I've thought about things. Cause I can think about my whole 30s. Like, I don't know. I did a lot of stuff that I'm very proud of and happy with, but I don't know. You just realize that the way and I just think of, like I said, so many things where like I was going to do this and I started it and then I just stopped because I just didn't have what it takes to stick with it, or I didn't want it enough, or I didn't design the way I was going to do it the best. Lots of things. But so this all sounds great, and as I get older, I'm definitely more able to do this, focusing on the process rather than caring about the shiny object or whatever at the end. Mm-hmm. It's definitely easier as you get older because I think you gain perspective and you just start to understand that, first of all, you understand that certain things are more important than others. But you also gain, I think, a little bit of discipline and appreciation for things like the process.
Yeah. On
the other hand, what you just said sounds like this great, wonderful, balanced life where you have no goals and you just do these activities. But like, I don't know, it's not gonna last, right? Like you have, like I said, you have to have those goals that make it exciting, that give you the process to appreciate.
I'm gonna push back a little bit on that because I think that you might not have the goal, right? You might not have, or the immediate goal, like of every single workout, but you're going to get stronger, right? I mean, you're going to like, definitely. After week 1, you're going to feel one way. After week 4, you're going to feel a totally different way. And that's going to feel good. I mean, you're going to end a workout and you're going to say, wow, I'm so much stronger than I was 4 weeks ago. I can do this so much better. And that's exciting. That's kind of motivating because I'm just going to keep getting better and better.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, and you can have goals within that, right? Like and you do in this program. The goal is eventually to lift, I think, a 70 something pound kettlebell, which is some amount of kilograms, 40 or something like that, maybe 32. To be able to do exactly the workout I described with a 70 pound kettlebell, and like that is the goal, and so you can see yourself moving towards that.
Right.
I guess but that goal has no meaning to me, I want to be strong. Like, I don't know. I want the results of that. I don't really care about being able to do that particular thing. But maybe you learn to care about that. I mean, I could see myself learning to really care about that if I was good for a month or two of doing this. Like, I could see that being a really exciting thing to imagine getting to another level with it.
So this I think transitions pretty well into my New Year's resolution, which I have 2, and one is like super duper vague and probably not a good way to set a resolution, but it's more an intention, and I'm hoping that it would lead to something if I can kind of use this mindset.
You said super vague?
Vague, yeah.
Okay, I think you said big. Okay, I get it.
Oh no, vague.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'll start. Well, maybe I should start with the really result-driven one. I don't know. Okay.
By the way, for a tiny bit of context, I think you and I at the beginning of this year, before we knew it was going to be a COVID year, we noticed that the big thing about our goals that was different from before was that they were somewhat more vague. Than they weren't accomplish this specific thing. They were do more of this activity or things. And so that was interesting. So just providing that bit of background, because now you've got a vague one and a specific one. So
and I guess they could potentially go together pretty well. But anyway, so the vague, or the intentional one, the result driven one, is to be able to do 5 pull-ups. I've never in my life been able to do 5 consecutive pull-ups, and I don't think I've ever been able to do more than 3. So
what kind of pull-ups is that? Like chin-up pull-ups or hands facing away from you?
Hands facing away from you.
Okay. Yeah, those
pull-ups.
Are
yeah. Okay. And so I've been like every time I go to the playground with Eliza, I always try to do some pull-ups on like the monkey bars. And and every time I'm disappointed in myself. But then I never do anything about it. Like I never do any sort of like training or anything about it. It's just like once or twice a week I'm at a playground and I'm like, I wonder if I can do more than a couple of pull-ups. And I can't. So, for some reason, I'm not getting better at it.
Can you take a selfie of this next time, or have someone take a picture of all these kids playing and you sweating on the pull-up?
Yeah. So anyway, so that is a very result-driven goal. I want to be able to do 5 by the end of the year.
Okay. Do you have some plan to do it, or that's just right now? That's just setting the intention.
Yeah, just setting the intention, or but I'm making it public, and I don't really have a plan, but I'm gonna do some research on the best way it is to do it, and really try to follow a plan. Good. Cool. But then, so the other more broad one is my best in this past year was when I had really good routines. So this was actually probably the first couple months of quarantine, before we had our baby, before we before the yoga studio was in a lot of trouble and all that stuff. So really those first couple months when it was all fresh and new and you felt like you had all this time, like that was what it was for me. So I had great routines. I was spending at least 20 minutes practice disc golf putting every day. Mm-hmm. I was waking up early and doing some work before anyone else woke up. I was on the weekends, I was taking time to do some woodworking stuff and to continue developing those skills as setting aside time throughout the day. And then I had goals on the weekend, or things that I did every single weekend, and just had a really good flow and a really good routine. And now I don't have any of that. And part of that is definitely the baby. I mean, the baby kind of screws up everything. But she's getting at a point now where she is sleeping more consistently. It doesn't screw up everything, but screws up routines.
My life, kids screwed it all up.
No, but routines are hard.
We had an episode on parenting, by the way, no one, about how about how they come along and screw everything up, and then over time they become the best thing. They make it all worth it. But now she's getting in a little bit more consistent sleep patterns and things like that, and Katie and I are in a better routine with her. So I'm feeling the space to be able to do that, and it's only going to increase as time goes. So so I want that daily putting practice. I want that daily run or workout or whatever. I want more consistency and routine around the meals that we're cooking and all this stuff. So this is very broad, but where I think I'm going to start is just with one thing, try to form that small habit, and then develop another one, and move on from there. So it's very broad, and there's no end result in there. But that was when I was my best in 2020, and I want to get back to there sooner rather than later. Cool, good. You need the paperclip game.
I know. I mean, it sounds kind of like that, right? I mean, yeah.
Well, that's first of all, I like those goals. I think that's really great. I think that's something I am hoping to do this year, and I have not set mine at all formally. But I want to not overcommit to things, and I like what you have there. Where one of them is fairly vague, a lot of improvements that can happen within that, and one of them is really specific, that doesn't have a lot of wiggle room for whether or not you did it. So I like that. I like that it is relatively small in terms of number. So I had, as I mentioned, this paperclip game, which was something of a system. It was very loose, vague system. Not vague. It was a system because I was getting points for all these things, and it worked. However, when I look back on this year, well, it taught me a whole lot of things. But I realized, like, I did a ton of stuff, as I mentioned. But I didn't do any of it with any order to it. I just did it. I just did what I felt like doing. And no one knew that this was going to last the whole year. I wish I would have had a better system. I wish now I was looking back and saying, not that I spent all these hours learning Italian, even some German I learned, Spanish, the cooking, the movies, the game, all these things that I'm happy that I did. The reading. I wish I would have and the piano, by the way, I didn't mention that. I got the piano and started doing that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But it was all haphazard. Like, it was like I would just feel like it one day and start doing it, and then I might do it for a month in a row, and then I would just kind of stop doing it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I wish, like, had I known this whole year would have been this much free time to do these things, I wish I would have, like, experimented with different systems for them. And there is still time to do that, perhaps, because we're not out of this yet. And that's kind of what I want to think about next year. Because and this is also what has come with age, is like I realize that when I get into something, I'm really, really good at focusing, zeroing in on that thing, and I can do just about only that thing. Like, I don't need to do anything else. I can do it all day long when I'm that into something. And
I've seen it.
Yeah, I don't get bored of it. It's just all I want to do. Everything else then becomes distraction, and that leads to some problems, obviously. But then I get to a point where something happens. So, I guess I start to get bored with that activity because I'm doing only that thing. And after 3 months or 1 month or 6 months, maybe, something else comes along. I start to get interested in that. And then I just totally abandon the old thing. Mm-hmm. Not on purpose. It just suddenly I'm so drawn to this new thing that I start only doing that. And that has happened a little bit with the languages compared to music, because suddenly the piano thing took off for me. I started finding that, more novel than Italian flashcards or going for a walk and listening to this Italian course. And so, like, I started doing that, and then I started playing drums again. I went back downstairs, got the drum kit all tuned up, set, ready to go. I went to Guitar Center, found some ways to kind of make it quieter so I can do it, more freely without worrying about disturbing the whole house. And suddenly it's a real challenge for me to go do the language flashcards, because it's like I want to do this music thing instead. So I don't want to. What I need is a system that is, I'm blanking on the word, but that goes well with this way of being. I don't want to happen what did happen, what I mentioned with, like, the Spanish, that I just started Italian and then I just left that behind completely. Mm-hmm. Like, had I just done one little weekly 30-minute Spanish session per week, I would have been able to keep it up and I wouldn't have lost that ground. And so the big mistake I realize that I make at the beginning of every New Year's is I know that I'm like this. I know that I like one thing and I just dive into it. Every New Year's, though, I'll pick 12 things that I want to do, and then I will set out some crazy schedule that has me doing all of them from the start of the year.
Yep.
And it never, ever works. Like, 2 of them might stick, and then the others I'll just leave behind. So I'm trying to come up with something that says, maybe in this year, my goal is to do these 4 different things, and each of them is going to be the main focus for just 1 quarter of the year. Mm-hmm. I still want to have some things that are always going in the background. Like, I do want this kettlebells and the TRX thing that I mentioned in our gift guide episode. Like, I want to get a fitness habit going, and that's going to become, I hope, one of these things that I can embrace as, like, a practice. But maybe that only needs a little bit of time where it is my main focus, and then after that, something else can move in to replace it as far as, like, where all my mental energy is going. But I keep, with some sort of discipline, some sort of system, keep that habit in place so that I'm still doing something, not with the intensity I was doing before, but that I can keep it up. So anyway, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm super interested all of a sudden in playing a bunch of music again, and I also want to. There's other languages that I would like to learn, and I want to maintain the ones I have. So it to me feels like what I always do, where there's just overwhelming amount of things that I want to do. Not to mention, plenty of other things like spiritual practice. Sort of get that, because I read a lot about that, but I don't have any kind of serious thing I do. I would like that. I have some personal relationship things I just want to be better at. I just want to show up better in things. So I have that same, I'm falling into the same pattern where I have a billion things I want to do. And I know if I try to do all of them at once, it will not work. So where I am now is trying to come up with something that says, here's my plan for the year. Doesn't have to be a year, but I think a year is, I like the year framework. That allows me to get these, but focus on very few at a time, but then have something where I don't lose what I have been focusing on once I move on to the next thing.
Okay, two things come up for me as I'm hearing that. The first is, since like, I mean, so I guess health, your life, like you can argue that health is like a long-term longevity, priority, like that matters.
Yep.
Way beyond just, achieving a certain goal.
Sure.
But like language or music or, some other thing that you become really into, I wonder if it's really like, does it matter that much that it falls off if you're getting a lot of fulfillment from obsessing over Italian or piano or drums or whatever during these several months and then it falls off? Like, does that really matter?
That's what we asked at the beginning, right? Like, does it matter that I lost the Spanish if I enjoyed it so much during it? So it's same thing. You're right. Oh, but over multiple categories. So maybe all I need then, and maybe you were going to say this, is to have one habit at all times that is my fulfillment, growth, progress habit.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter which one it is. It doesn't matter if they come and go and get lost.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I mean, so that was one thing. The other thing, if you were going to add a structure to it, my idea that I was going to throw out, and I obviously haven't thought any of this through, but if you find yourself like obsessing, what you do, and that's like a better way for you to progress than like, trying to carve out a little bit of time every day or switching every day between activities or something like that, would be to just like go all in for 2 weeks, obsess over drums for 2 weeks and then say, okay, the next 2 weeks I'm going to obsess over piano and the next 2 weeks I'm going to get back into my Italian. And then you're like cycling through 3 or 4 different things, but allowing yourself to like really go in for those couple weeks and then have like a hard cut and move on to the next thing if you really don't want to lose that type of thing. Right.
I like that. I was thinking in these quarterly terms, but I think the shorter thing is interesting. Shoot, I had a thought about the other thing you said, and I like that too. Oh yeah, you know what it is? It's that I have, and this again was with the birthday thing from 30. I think about the whole 30s. Not the whole 30s. My whole 30s. I just like, because we had an episode about, God, we've done a lot of episodes now about all these topics. We had an episode about jazz drumming, believe it or not, on the Nomadic podcast. And what a, that, of course, just being sort of a metaphor for having a habit or a practice. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I remember saying something like, I'm so mad at myself that I haven't been playing drums for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Because now at that point I was doing it for 30 minutes a day or something like that. And I was loving it. And I was like, man, if I had just done only this for the past 5 years, I'd be so good at that now. And so, but sure enough, that fell off, of course, like everything. And here I am saying the same thing. So what I don't want is to turn 50 and say, I just should have picked something while I was in my 40s to really get good at, instead of going always back and forth between all these different things. Now, if the whole purpose is just to be fulfilled in the moment, then maybe that doesn't matter at all. And that is a good question. Maybe it doesn't. That would be really, it would be hard for me to acknowledge that and admit that and say, this is really just about the moment. None of it has to lead anywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I still, I don't know.
Here's one more question, and this might be impossible to answer, but what if you said to yourself, you thought to yourself, okay, when I'm 50, I really want to have gotten, like if I think about everything, all my interests now that I'm kind of swapping back and forth on, when I'm 50, like it would be really cool if I knew 4 different languages. And like that was like the thing you really wanted to achieve. And the drumming would be cool too, and the piano and you know,
Right.
whatever else would be cool too, but like those are kind of side things. What I really would want when I'm 50 is to know 4 different languages so that I can you know, live in Europe for however long and hop around and not having a problem. Like what if like that was the one thing that you just were really strict on, that you know, you're going to be really consistent with that, and you can obsess over the drumming, but you're still, no matter what, you're going to carve out 2 hours a week for language. And you can obsess over running for a little while, but no matter what, you're going to carve out 2 hours a week for language. Like for me, that's always been running. Like, you know, like I can get excited about woodworking, I can get excited about disc golf. But you know, sometimes if I'm playing too much disc golf, I'll be like, okay, but you know, you want to stay fit, you want to make sure that you're able to run. Like maybe we should go for a run today instead of going back out to the course.
Right.
And you know, that's worked out okay, I guess. But then again, now I'm not running, so like.
Yeah. I mean, in theory, it sounds great. The challenge that arises is I would have a tremendously hard time picking a thing. Or even a couple things, it would become all of them. It'd be like, well, I got 10 years. I can do all this stuff. I don't need to just pick this one. Or if I could pick just one, 6 months in, I'd want it to be something else.
Yeah.
I'd say, no, I was wrong. This is what it really is. So I like the idea though, and I will definitely think more about that. And maybe maybe I need to step back a little bit. Maybe it's not any one language. Maybe it's not even languages in general. Maybe it's learned. Maybe I want to at 50 have known that I spent 10 years really learning a ton of stuff. I mean,
well, so when you turned 30, was there something that you were really into then that you're now still really into? I mean,
yeah. So the only thing when you said running, for me, it's honestly is food and healthy eating. And I mean, I do plenty of cooking that is not that healthy, but it always kind of tends back towards healthy, and it gets incorporated then into a healthy version and so like that's been it. It's been that I focused on eating healthy, making healthy food for my family. My work is this, obviously. That's always, we don't talk about it that much now, the food, but like that's still behind everything we do. Yeah, I mean that's it, and that's great. That certainly has yielded a good result. I've managed to eat healthy now for 15 years, and 11 of them have been vegetarian, and 9 have been vegan. So that, yeah, I mean there's one. It's funny though, I never picked and said that's my thing that I'm gonna like always have. It just made itself that. Probably like running for you. It just becomes
that. Right. Yeah.
So anyway, where does that leave us? I don't know, but with lots of things to think about for sure. So I hope I guess we went into this episode knowing that there would not be some result that comes from it. But my hope is, I like this holiday. I like New Year so much. I think there's always, I just like people being excited and inspired about things. So my hope is that someone could listen to this and that it comes out just early enough for them to actually think some of this stuff and just to stir up some thoughts, maybe give you a few little cautions. If you see yourself falling into I guess you could call them traps that we've fallen into. It's hard to say they are traps because I'm pretty happy with how things have gone. So
yeah, right. Yeah. Well, Happy New Year, Matt. Happy New Year to everybody else.
Definitely. This will be we'll be entering our 12th year of Nominated Athlete. Is that right? I mean, I know it's not till March, but
that's right.
But this will be our 12th.
Yeah, we hit 11th anniversary this year.
So our 12th anniversary will be in March, and then we'll be beginning our 13th year actually.
Yeah, which is incredible.
It's unlucky. 13.
And was it 2009 that I started working
2009
with you?
is when Nominated Athlete began.
Okay, so it would have been maybe 2010.
Yeah, I probably met you in 2010 at that Veg Fest, and then I don't know when we started working, but we probably
maybe this is our 10th anniversary this year, or next year would be.
Oh, the podcast,
our relationship. Yeah,
of ours. Maybe, could be.
Yeah. Wow, it's a long time.
That is a long time.
And Matt, you'll be 40 by the time this goes live, or
yeah,
you probably will be. So happy birthday!
Happy birthday to me.
Anything else that you're feeling around that you want to share?
No, I mean, like I assume like anybody else, I have those nights where you wake up and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna be dead in this much more time added onto my life. Or like, I can't believe like this is or you wake up and think you're 20 and then you realize that that was 19 years ago. now you're twice that. I have those things that happen. But no, I think in the past 5 years, I've just gotten a lot more comfortable and happy with how things are.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have too much in the way of regrets or fear of getting older or any of that. I'm looking forward to it. A lot of things are good.
I have a friend, and I don't think this is you. I think it's someone else that I'm thinking of that has one of those countdown timers on their or apps on their phone.
Yeah.
Do you know this? Like,
no, is it something that reminds you that you have to live for today because you only have this much time left?
Well, so it's just like you can set it for anything. So he sets it for like if he has a race coming up or I don't know, some other like big event that he wants to has a countdown timer for that 30 days till whatever. But he looked up, like the average age, like he set it to the average length of time that a male lives, and he has a countdown to that. So it's like basically a countdown to
right.
death, of course. And so, but so that's what it is. Like it's like a reminder that you have 13,000 days, only 13,000 days left to live, or whatever.
Right. I've heard similar. I read an article at some point with some person who I think he was fairly old, like I don't know, maybe 70s, 80s, and he guessed about how long he had left to live, just using life expectancy or whatever. And he made a big jar of marbles. And each marble represented, I think, a Saturday or a weekend or something that he had. Wow. And I don't know why he was still doing weekends, because I don't know if he still worked or if it was just that he had this Saturday ritual that he always did something else. But he just had, and if it's 52 weeks in a year, then if you have 10 years left, that's 500 marbles. If you have 20 years left, that's 1,000 marbles. But it's not that many, right? I mean, it's kind of a lot. But you can imagine that filling a jar in your desk, and you can imagine seeing that jar get smaller as you take them out. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that stuff's really powerful. I do like that. My big out is I always think, well, there's a really good chance we're going to live to be 500 with these.
You're convinced that you're going to live forever. So I don't know what you're worried about anyway.
Right. Yeah. No, I like that idea. I don't know. I don't know how it actually go. Maybe they do a lot of strange, unexpected feelings. But I like the idea.
And then when you're running low on marbles, you really did lose your marbles, right? I mean, there's some sort of joke there, right?
All right. On that note, oh hey, one more thing. Promote. We are doing 80/20 plants, which you, Doug, have been involved in. It's big, sort of one of the new initiatives of the No Meat Athlete team, I guess. Kind of a business spin-off. It started a long time ago, maybe 2 years, but in the past year we've gotten funding, and it is a much different level of seriousness than ever before. The app is really coming along nicely. We have a team of like 6 full-timers, and it's really, really something good now. And it's about having people go vegan. So if you were interested in eating a more plant-based diet, whether that's all the way plant-based or just, a lot more plant-based than you currently are, or if you've got somebody else who you think that would be good for, or if you already eat plant-based but you don't eat as healthy as you want to, this whole app is based, and I work on this every day, the behavior change aspect. I mean, the stuff we're talking about, a lot of these things, these ideas of how do you create habits and how do you change behavior, how do you set things up so that behavior change becomes automatic if you just sort of follow these basic instructions. That's what 80/20 Plants is all about. And we're doing some really cool stuff. So anyway, there's a really good deal going on right now. Since it's New Year's, it's a perfect time to get, make a commitment or a change like this. So if you want to check it out, if you want to get in at a really, really good price, and make 2021 as good as it possibly can be from a diet perspective, at least. I'm not going to say anything about the rest of the world. Who knows? Go to nomeatathlete.com/8020. That's the numbers 8020. nomeatathlete.com/8020. And it will redirect you over to 80/20 Plants, and you can check out what we're doing there.
Awesome. It's really exciting. Haven't been involved in the last couple of months with 80/20 as you've been transforming a bunch of things, but from the outside, it looks really incredible. And I know that, it was an app that I really believed in before, and now I just feel like it's to a totally new level. And so if you're going plant-based, or if you're struggling to kind of eat a healthy plant-based life or diet, then go for it, man. I mean, this is cool.
Cool. nomeatathlete.com/8020. And on that note, Happy New Year. Hopefully 2021 will be a little different.
Yeah. Let's hope.
Let's hope.